So welcome to the Rising Stars interview with Stephen Ibaraki. Stephen, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to speak at the Rising Stars conference. I'd like to go over a few items that you brought up to discuss, and I'd like to welcome you.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here, Phil. I'm really excited and sort of jazzed about your conference. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. So the first topic that you brought up was the evolution of the fourth industrial revolution. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You know, in 2016, with the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, they came up with this idea of the evolution or the fourth industrial revolution, which really took off worldwide. But it's evolved since then. So, you know, in 2018, a group out of the Netherlands called KNVI came up with this idea of smart humanity. In other words, rather than just having this fourth industrial revolution transforming through the biological, digital, and physical transformations, it's now pervades all of society, culture, you know, it's every part of our lives, and they call that smart humanity. And then, of course, the following year at the G20 summit, Japan named it Society 5.0, but really it's this aspect that it's pervasive and it really reflects an historical inflection point in our lives.
Wow, that's exciting. You know, we're on the cusp of so many new things here. Tell us about responsible AI trends that you've seen.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is that there's been all sorts of frameworks in AI and ethical use of AI and so on. And initially it was maybe 10 or 20. Now it's like over 150 worldwide. But, you know, there's one thing about having ethical principles, a code of ethics or code of conduct or frameworks. And there's another thing of actually being able to use it. And that's exploding next year, especially through a group called AI Global, but many others, UNESCO and others. And what that means is that, let's say I'm a government and I want sort of practical ways that I can implement responsible AI in all of my strategy and things I'm doing. Well, there's a way to do that now. Or let's say I'm a coder within the IEEE Oregon, you know, sort of huge member body. Well, there's ways and I can operationalize it and use it. So there's this whole movement of operationalization occurring in responsible AI.
Well, that's fantastic. So I see that you've worked with the United Nations and the World Health Organization. Can you tell us a little bit about AI for Good, the World Health Organization, and the World Food Program?
Well, you know, the UN is really a big innovator, and a lot of people don't know that. And they just think of it sort of like out of New York and the General Assembly, but there's about 40 UN agencies that specialize in different areas, and almost every one have some kind of innovation platform, acceleration platform. So for example, the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, have something called AI for Good, which I helped found with them. And they actually have a number of working groups working on standards and the application of AI as applies to sustainable development goals. The World Food Program has an innovation accelerator where they adopt things like blockchain and artificial intelligence and mobile technologies to help with zero hunger. In fact, they won the Nobel Peace Prize this year, but the World Health Organization as well. So there's a lot of work going on with the UN, and I recommend that, you know, the audience have a look or follow their work. And a lot of them have open platforms, so anybody can engage.
Well, and speaking of the ITU, one of the, I think, benefits that I've found in amateur radio is using the ITU phonetic alphabet rather than saying apple, baby, you know, can of peas, whatever, using Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. It makes it, you know, quite unique when you're giving license keys or trying to communicate with folks from different countries and different, you know, over the air, different things. So yeah, that's an incredible work that you're doing there. Tell us about the CEOs. Now, you've worked with an incredible number of CEOs, and you mentioned to me the number, and I'm going to ask you to state that again, because I've lost track. Either I can't that high, or I can't remember. But you know, with your Earth Impact Summit, the Knowledge Pledge, and your Leadership Alliance, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I guess in total now it's over 100,000 CEOs, and I work in about 20 different CEO programs worldwide, some of which you just mentioned. So for example, the YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, created something called the European Impact Summit, which is now scaling through the Earth Impact Summit. That's a group of 30,000 CEOs looking at how can we do positive change for the planet by addressing through solutions, some of the big ideas that are out there in a positive way. The Knowledge Pledge is sort of associated with the YPO, but also works with external groups as well. It's really an external entity. But again, it's the same sort of thing. You know, what kind of projects can they lend their relationship networks, their scaling capabilities to help mentor along some of these projects? And the CEO Leadership Alliance is this purposeful leadership group based out of Southern California, actually Orange County, but they work with other CEO clusters throughout the US. And would you believe they're actually building an AI SuperHub, sort of like a center of AI excellence that could be like a template or model for the world. But they're also engaged in social impact as well. So it's not just about AI, but it's about jobs, talent, education, and diversity, inclusion, and so on. So just a great idea, and just amazing work that these CEO buckets are doing around the world.
So what's the implication with that in the SC Maser Fund?
Well, the SC is the Southern California Master Fund, and the purpose of that is, you know what if there's a venture capital group, an investment group that's doing amazing investments that has some positive impact on the region as well, but could maybe scale globally. The Master Fund is a fund of funds. Its purpose is to fund other funds, and they even have the capability of even making some direct investments as well. But it's tied in with the CEO Leadership Alliance, which is this really total ecosystem idea of enhancing impact and innovation, and can be scaled in different regions of the world as well.
So is the SC Master Fund limited to Southern California? Is that correct?
You know, they can put their fund of funds into any venture capital group. And currently, you know, they're focusing on Southern California, but you never know, right? If something looks really good, you know, perhaps it can scale to other areas as well.
Excellent. Well, and so I know you've spent a lot of time and money investing in other different technologies and things. One of our speakers, John Butler, actually relayed to me that he invested in something that was called Glowfish a few years ago. And he asked one of my neighbors who started Golfsmith if he wanted to invest, and he said, I don't know anything about fish, you know. And so the joke between the two of them is that was the best investment that he ever passed on. So tell us about your investment and working with investments.
You know, there's a lot of stuff or sort of movements happening or trends in investments. So, and part of it was happening even prior to this pandemic, but the pandemic, I think, has just accelerated it. So keep in mind, there's over $60 trillion locked up by over 20 million high net worth individuals. And you'll see that group now moving towards investments that have something called ESG, environmental social governance, sort of underpinning. You're seeing that with CEOs as well, purposeful leadership, mindful leadership to CEOs, and saying, you know what, I just don't want to focus on my shareholders, but I want really a multi-stakeholder impact in terms of the investments they're making. And you even saw, you know, the BlackRock, really famous investment group that have something like about 7 trillion assets under management, and Larry Fink in his annual letter has talked about, you know, what corporations have to have impact to receive support from them. They have to address things like this whole bucket of investments of baby boomers shifting to millennials and Generation Z of about $24 trillion. But younger people have more of a ESG focus again, environmental social governance focus. And then you're finding venture capital groups and other social impact investors realizing that, you know what, it's a good thing to have social impact in your investments. In fact, you may even have a better sort of bottom line as well, a return on that investment. So I'm seeing this whole shift occurring in the investment space, and it's quite remarkable that it's happening.
So that's incredible to hear that, and there's a great trend among young investors to be socially responsible and globally responsible. Just as a recap, what would be your top 3 areas of investment that you see for the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, I'm actually talking about that in my keynote for Rising Stars. I'll talk about really some of the transformational change makers and areas that you should be following anyways, but they also make great investment areas. And I'll even be showcasing some example startups that I think are really leaders in the world as, you know, as examples, and maybe demonstrate some of their software as well. So, but a great question. So without question, AI.
Absolutely.
If you look at the adoption of AI worldwide and you predict what the adoption rate is going to be in the next few years, it's in the 90 percentile. And big data is in the also in the sort of the 90 percentile. Now, full adoption within companies is still under 40%. So in other words, they're doing proof of concepts, maybe doing some kind of proof of business in one segment of their business, and they're still looking at scaling. But that scaling aspect will dramatically sort of improve and have much higher penetration in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And even national strategies right now, there's over 50 countries with national strategies. You're going to see that grow, because whether you're in government or in industry or in academia or in media or in society, you know, you can't not think about it or see the implications of it. And you see it in the news all the time as well. So, so I see, you know, AI being a big aspect of investments. From us personally, I think chip technology and the next sort of iteration of where that's going, I actually talk about it in my keynote.
And that's coming up here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, so where that's going and some things to watch in that space. And blockchain still is a good infrastructure for certain kinds of applications and so on. So I think that's an area that, you know, people need to follow. But, you know, biotech is another area, and but there's many others. In fact, in my keynote, I'll describe 24 change-making areas that are of interest.
Wow. That's fantastic. We've got a couple minutes left here. Now, you've worked with some global organizations. You worked with the IEEE, ACM, and IFIP. Do you want to spend a couple minutes telling us about those before we head on to your session?
Yeah, so, you know, the IEEE, I think, is, you know, an amazing organization. You know, clearly sets standards. It's the preeminent engineering organization worldwide. In fact, this conference is an IEEE conference. So I'm definitely embedded in many aspects of what IEEE is doing, and you'll see my interviews also appear within the IEEE community. So I always recommend to people worldwide, you got to, you know, join this organization or follow it. Another one is ACM. ACM in particular is #1 in computing science worldwide, and like IEEE has conferences, has journals, you know, has many sort of products to support the, you know, on the computing science area. And then IFIP is this federation of computing organizations, both at the national and international level, was founded by UNESCO in 1960. And again, they're another sort of represented bucket of, you know, conferences and programs. For example, in IFIP, they have something called IP3, which is on trustworthy computing and making sure that professionals are certified and at a national level, and so on. So really great organizations that I recommend the audience should be participating in actively.
Fantastic. And I've got some links here in the interview to the interviews that you have and some other books. With that, we're just about out of time, and I want to thank you, Stephen. I look forward to your session coming up just next year at the Rising Stars 2020 conference. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm jazzed. I'm excited. I think this is going to be an amazing experience. So thank you for taking the time, allowing me to share some of my insights with you, Phil.
Absolutely. Thank you.